Man, so this one is a doozy, isn't it? We're getting a whole bunch of people all over the hockey world confirming trade talks surrounding the Montreal Canadiens. Earlier in this show, we talked about the Patrik Laine trade conversation and how Bill Guerin confirmed that the Wild were involved with him. And now we're talking about another article, this time on lapresse.ca, that goes over, this is gonna be a big one here, the ups and downs of Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now, you can see at the top of the screen there, dossier, 3 articles. This is indeed a 3-article thing. I don't even know if you call it an article. There are 3 different full-length articles written in this article. There's the new life of Pierre-Luc Dubois, there's the divorce in Winnipeg, and there's a healthy relationship with John Tortorella. Each of these articles, you can click on them, and there's a full-length article underneath with a whole bunch of interviews and a whole bunch of comments. Man, did Matthias Brunet really go out there and not settle for anything in this? But what I wanted to do in this article, this triad of articles within the one article, was go over the divorce in Winnipeg situation, because if you go over to this piece, you can see some comments that PLD makes about the Montreal Canadiens and how essentially he confirms that trade talks and the trade idea was there. Afterwards, we'll look at the new life of Pierre-Luc Dubois part of the article, because this part goes out there and describes some of his comments and experiences with the LA Kings. But starting out with the divorce in Winnipeg, Pierre-Luc Dubois goes out there and opens the article by saying this. Some say I asked for a trade from Columbus and Winnipeg. I didn't ask for a trade from the Winnipeg Jets. I told them I had a year left before I was a free agent and I didn't want to sign for more than a year. They told me they would trade me if that was the case. If I had come to Winnipeg with a 5-year deal, I would have spent all 5 seasons there. But I was a year away from being a full-fledged free agent, being able to decide for the first time in my life where I was going to play. That was a big deal for me. You can go around the league, it happens every year. Guys who don't sign a contract extension to test the market, July 1st is full of available players. Now, before we continue, that kind of feels like, oh yeah, actually, I didn't go out there and request a trade. I said that I wouldn't sign for more than a year, and they said they wouldn't trade me if I did that. Like, you kind of see how nitpicky that sounds, right? Of course, I put on, like, the nerd, acne-ridden, prepubescent, brace-faced teen voice on for that, but you kind of get what I mean, right? There's sort of an entitlement or a nitpicky quality about that answer. Either way, let's continue. Dubois then talks about the trade wherein he was sent to LA, but before that it talks about how Rick Bowness, at the end of their playoff run, pointed the finger at his leadership group, without naming any specific one. I talked to Rick about it again, Dubois said. When he targets a small group and one member of that small group leaves, it's easy to point the finger. Was I a part of the group? Maybe. He would never tell us whom he was talking about. The timing was bad, but Rick wanted me to stay in Winnipeg. Before completing the trade, the Jets allowed Dubois to talk to a few teams to facilitate a trade, and this is where it's revealed he did speak with the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal starts with David Savard. He was my big brother in Columbus. He's not a friend, he's like a family member. His family is like my family. Then you have St. Louis, whom I didn't have for long in Columbus as a power play specialist, but whom I liked. I am a proud Quebecer. I spend my summers here, my parents are here, my grandparents too. It's impossible to not think about Montreal. We did indeed talk a little bit, but in the world of hockey, everything is a question of timing. It wasn't necessarily the right situation for both parties, and LA was pushing a lot. LA seemed like the best option because they wanted me a lot. And putting aside the how much money you got a lot, let's take a blast to the past and revisit the LA Kings trade saga for PLD, because it was reported for months that PLD only wanted to go to Montreal. He was going to get traded, he didn't want to sign long-term with Winnipeg, there was so much leverage that the Montreal Canadiens had, and for PLD to say that the situation in Montreal, despite talking to the Habs and trying to get a trade done there, to say that the situation in Montreal was actually not a fit is wildly accurate. Big props out to PLD for acknowledging that, because if you remember back in that time frame, we were making a bunch of videos saying, yeah, it doesn't really make sense for the Canadiens to get this dude. He's a little bit too old, he's going to want a lot of money, he's going to take away a center spot from a guy like Nick Suzuki, and eventually maybe some other center like a Kirby Dach. Is he really the kind of player that the Canadiens need to add and pay money to get? Sure, they're not going to have to pay assets to get, because it's kind of all leveraged in the Canadiens' favor, but still, with the circumstances of the team and their progression and their rebuild, and they could have maybe had a few more wins in 2024 if they had PLD, so they might not have been able to draft Ivan Demidov. It kind of dominoes into a big spiral where you say, yeah, it was probably best for the Montreal Canadiens not to get PLD. And now you think about where the team is, they've got this top six that's looking really good, and they've got Demidov, and they got Laine, and imagine if they had Dubois and Laine on the same team. That would have been funny. But it wasn't a good fit. And for PLD to admit that and say, yeah, LA also kind of wanted me, which led to me accepting the trade there, it makes a lot of sense. It kind of checks out with all the stuff that we had perceived back in that time frame too. It was always like, yeah, PLD's only going to accept a trade to Montreal until he wasn't. And then there were teams slowly trickling into the conversation, and then LA just happened to win. That's what happened. And now, with that in mind, I wanted to go over to the other part of the article, the new life of Pierre-Luc Dubois, because this part of the La Presse article goes over Dubois' comments on the LA Kings and what went wrong. Here it is. I was flying to Minnesota to work out with the Kings' strength conditioning coach. I couldn't call, but I had Wi-Fi, and I kind of had a feeling after my end-of-season meeting with the management the night before. They hadn't talked to me about trading me, but I had a feeling they were going to try. On the flight, my agent texted me and told me to call him ASAP. There was a delay when we found out I was going to be traded, and when I got to my destination, I started to get nervous. Where am I going to live for the next 7 years? And I had an hour-and-a-half flight time left. PLD knew early on that things might not work out in LA. Take it as you will, but I always needed to have a clear instruction to do my job 100%. I get mixed up when there are gray areas. I question myself too much. I've been working on that since I was young. And there, for my first conversations with the team, I didn't really know what was expected of me. I didn't know where I stood. You can't play well when you question yourself too much. Okay, so is PLD blaming the Kings? No, the article says he is not blaming the Kings for that, though. Although he says he had no more than 2 conversations with Coach Todd McClellan over the winter. We didn't talk often. Todd is more of a team tactics coach. Maybe we didn't have that relationship. Maybe I was too demanding, wanting to have the path explained to me. It's obviously my fault that it didn't work. You're not supposed to expect your entourage to help you gain confidence, but it can help. I tried to take on that challenge, but I stayed in a gray area all year. I didn't feel at home. The players helped me, and I wanted to unblock, but it just wasn't working. Oh my goodness, man. Like, I don't ever want to be too judgmental, too over the top with my assessment of players and their comments, but come on, you're an $8.5 million player. What are you talking about? The team didn't tell you what they wanted out of you. What are you talking about? You didn't talk with the coach too much. You're an $8.5 million player. You put up or shut up. You play with it. You go. You get better. You improve. That's your job. You are getting paid millions of dollars to be a player that is not worth getting benched or put on the 4th line. The lack of accountability here, man. Like, I get it. He says that one sentence. Obviously, it's my fault. But the rest of the thing is like, oh yeah, I got this questioning myself problem. I've been working on it since I was a kid, and the LA Kings didn't help me overcome that. They didn't tell me what I needed to do. Like, oh my gosh, dude. Goodness gracious. He goes out there and says this as well. Look at this. He will always have scars. That's the term he uses from his experience in LA. I thought I was going to settle down there for 8 years, not get traded after 1 year. I lived the worst case scenario, hence the scars. We understand each other. There are much worse things in life. I still play the sport I love. I still have my family, my friends, my life is fine, but professionally it was the worst case scenario. You want to succeed in your career, you want to please your team and the people around you. Pierre-Luc Dubois is an open book. His body language speaks volumes. He lights up whenever he talks about the Capitals. I enjoyed my conversations with them, not just the coach, but the GM, Brian McClellan. Tom Wilson helped me find a home. I've been following the Caps since I came into the league, the city, the rink, watching Ovi on TV when I was young. I had my mind set on coming back east. All that together, I was lucky. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Firstly, about Pierre-Luc Dubois confirming trade talks with the Montreal Canadiens. And secondly, about Pierre-Luc Dubois maybe in a way, not even like fully, but just kind of like 20%-ish, blaming the LA Kings for him not doing well. He says that it is his fault, but he does say that the Kings didn't do as well as they could have to help me get better. Ay, ay, ay. That's, I do not know how I feel about that, but I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Am I just being too harsh on the guy? Maybe I am. Maybe I'm being a little bit too judgmental. Maybe I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt. But maybe this has been a problem for 3 teams that he's played for in the NHL now, and we're seeing these symptoms progress once more. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99, and bye.